Well. Good morning and happy Friday.
Oh, good morning, man. Oh,
Big
sorry.
stretch.
I just fell snoozing in my chair. That's all.
Good morning, AC Cruz.
Where's Michael? Is
Let's
he going to
see.
join us this morning?
There's
There he
Methuselah.
is.
Oh, wait, just
Oh,
kidding. He's
he's
gone.
asleep too. Wake up, dude. Wake up.
Have my headphones on. I have no idea what it said about me.
I like how you just conveniently leaned over to show us that little Emmy in the background. It's no biggie. It's fine. No worries.
Oh, yes.
Strategically placed, by the way.
How did that get there? Oh, my goodness.
Oh, what's that? Oh, I don't know.
What is that?
Oh, funny story. Quick. So I was. Do I ever tell a quick story? I was invited to this panel discussion on Armenian genocide because I'm an expert, obviously. So I was invited to this panel discussion, and I show up, and there's this other guy in there that has it out for me, that's opposed to me. And so I didn't realize that guy was going to be there. And I'm like, okay, so we go back and forth a little bit, and then I remember I have to leave the room and go grab something to show them, and I left the room, and I'm like, I realized, well, I wonder if that left an impression, if they even recognized what that was. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I don't go around touting that little detail. It's just a gift God has given me that you should not put under a bushel. Do not hide it. The talents, that God gives you, don't hide them. So I'm not hiding it.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't hide them, but also don't be arrogant.
Yeah, knowing that Hollywood gave it to me, I might hide it. I don't know. I'm not.
No,
this is what I got from the.
An Armenian gave it to me.
Oh, okay.
So technically, I can tell another. But
okay.
My name wouldn't have been on the list if it weren't for my Armenian friend at work that made sure my name was on the list to get it. So she's responsible. The trophy, it's like whatever. It's a hunk of steel or whatever it is.
Well, good morning. Happy Friday. Hope y'all's Labor Day weekend went well.
It did. I was hoping I was going to work, but they didn't call me in. So,
darn.
I got paid double time on holidays. I was like, yeah, I'll take
that. Oh, darn.
One year I was on call on New Year's Day. I was the on-call editor on New Year's Day, and somebody died or something, and so they called me in. And I go in, and they give me this little piece to edit, and it takes about an hour, and I'm done. And then I went home, and so I worked 1 hour and got paid for double time. So that's my highest earning per hour. That 1 hour, I got paid for 16 hours for 1 hour of work.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
Time.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, gents. So the main topic for today is alignment. What we're seeing right now in society, how we are realigning ourselves. Dr. Steve Turley has spent the past few videos talking about this, how what we're seeing right now socially, politically, culturally, is we're seeing people realign themselves. For the longest time, it was always Republican versus Democrat, liberal versus conservative, and everyone in the middle, right? But now it seems like we're going through a new realignment where instead of being horizontal, it's becoming vertical, of the people versus the elite, the ruling powers, the establishment, if you will, the ruled and the rulers. And he made a good point in his most recent video. This is not just happening in America, it's happening across the world. It's happening in Argentina with the election of Milei. It's happened in Italy. It's happened in the Netherlands, I believe, the European Trump. I forgot his name. And it's happening in Germany, I believe. Yeah, Turley made another video recently in Germany. There was a recent election, and it could happen in Ireland because Conor McGregor. I'm not his biggest fan. However, Conor McGregor is from Ireland, and he's made it very clear that he is seriously considering running for president of Ireland next year in response to the people being fed up with the corrupt system over there. And so here in America, like we talked about last week with RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, all these people joining the Trump side, it's people from all walks of life agreeing on one thing, and that is we hate the swamp, we hate the establishment, and we need to fight against that. That's what's happening. So before we go any further, what are y'all's thoughts on this realignment of sorts?
I'll defer to you, Mike, this time. Let's shake it up a little bit.
Well, Joel Fieri here is single-handedly responsible for me discovering Steve Turley.
Oh, yes.
A couple years ago, you're like, I listened to this guy, and you sent me a link, and I'm like, he's become my go-to. Like, I have, we all have a limited amount of time, limited number of hours in the day. So you got to be selective with your sources. And around the time I was started listening to him was right as he was transitioning from an actual career as an educator. He's like, forget that salary that I'm making over there. I'm making more money on YouTube and reaching more people. And so he transitioned from an actual career as an educator, like that. This guy knows what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. And then he went on YouTube, and he's over 1 million subs now, etc. But he's been demonetized, right? He's being attacked, etc. But he's got a good infrastructure, and I think he's Orthodox. Like, I don't know if he's Eastern Orthodox.
I think he
Orthodox,
is.
Something like that.
I think he's Orthodox.
Like that, yeah.
The way he's able to tie in the history of theology with world history, as he knows, and geopolitical, like he has a bird's eye view, a point of view that is wise beyond what your impression of him might be, right? This guy knows what he's talking about, and he's very articulate, and he writes out, and it's well thought out, and you get educated, and it's encouraging. Like, he's really, really encouraging. But the thing he's been talking about is forget the terminology he uses, but the cultures are returning to their spiritual roots, right? The gravitation toward tradition and traditional religions. And so we as Christians might think, well, it's not good for the Hindus to return to their Hindu religion, or for the Muslims to return to their Muslim religion. But in the grand scheme of things, it is good in the sense that it destroys the globalism, right? The globalists, right? The one world, this notion that we're all going to abandon all of our borders and be one world community, blah, 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 the globalist nonsense. So for cultures to return to their spiritual roots makes them more sensitive. And that actually opens up the gospel, right? People realizing, well, there is a God. He's doing something, because these secularists reject God, and these secularists are in their own, perverse religion. I'm going to go back to at least the religion I'm more comfortable with from my ancestry. And it's like Russia being one of the largest Christian nations that went secular in the Bolshevik Revolution. Them returning to their roots is good news, right? We have more. I'm going on a tangent. Joel, you told me to go, and I went, and I
did.
Stop here.
No, stop.
Hand off. Joel, your turn.
That's right.
What was the question again?
Yeah. No, does that mean you're done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, I don't want to step on anything.
I was just joking.
No, Robin just made a comment. It's so funny how the people who hated the establishment and fought against it actually became the establishment. That's a great point, Robin. Because that was my, back in the 40s and 50s, the Democratic Party was the party of the people. Now they're party of the elite and the rich. And I try to tell people this, that, I have people say, oh, you Republicans are the party of the super rich. I'm like, no, they're not. The party of the super rich and the super poor. People who don't have to worry about money anymore. The super rich, because money's just, they have so much of it that they can't even keep track of it. So they don't worry about it. They just do whatever they want to do. And then the super poor, who are relying on the government and taxes from rich people, they don't have to worry about money either. They don't have to. It's all of us in the middle that are kind of struggling with, this traditionally Democrats were the party of the people. And that's how, back in the day, I might have even believed that was true. When I was growing up, though, that's when the radicalness started, back in the 60s. And I don't let anybody glorify the 60s because I lived it. It was not good for for a child and myself. It was a really scary, dysfunctional time, as were the 70s. In the 80s, we kind of got ourselves right. But enough of the history lesson. But it's funny how also that doesn't mean the big state and the swamp is not going to fight back, because they are. And these are going to be interesting times. There's an ancient curse, right? May you live in interesting times. Okay. And that's sounds like you're wishing me well. No. If you are in interesting times, that means things are rough. Dennis Prager has another wise person I listen to. He has thing, if nothing's horrific, life is terrific. So in other words, the general state of life is conflict and injustice and violence and war and misery. And if you're not in any of those, you're doing well. And we've had this little window of prosperity because of it was because of the Judeo-Christian West, specifically the United States. We had this whole worldview that took over the Enlightenment, secular stuff, which because of the American Revolution kind of put that, to me, the American Revolution. Now you can correct me on this, historian Ben, but to me, the Enlightenment, kind of the secular ideas that came in that cesspool of bad ideas, France, that came up.
Oh, sure.
And the French Revolution kind of killed that whole thinking. And our revolution kind of said, no, like Michael always says, we are a nation, one nation under God. We are a Christian nation. And I don't care what anybody says, we're a Christian nation. We were founded as a Christian nation. And it's very clear. And people can pick and choose different things, say, oh, no, we weren't. But yes, we were. And so, but again, the enemy is not going to take it lying down. And you mentioned, I read something on that election in Italy Germany, I'm sorry. The one province of Germany that had that election, and then it went the conservative way. And what did they do? They came in and said, okay, they won this many seats, whatever party it was, won this many seats, and now they have majority, so we're going to take those seats away. The people running the elections, facilitating the election, said, no, we're gonna take one away and give it to the other party. Just dictatorially, right? Autocratically, authoritatively. So yeah, it's happening, but it's going to be a long, painful process, like it was in Russia, and like it has been in history. When you have, tyrants don't go down easy. And so we don't have one tyrant; we have a whole system of tyrants. Yeah,
right. Well, and on that historical note, Dr. Turley made a good point. He was like, even though we're seeing this fascinating realignment, we have to constantly be mindful, because even though the alignment is now vertical between the ruled and the ruling, that doesn't necessarily mean you're on the right track. All that means is there's a new path, a new direction, but what you do in that direction is what matters. Compare the American and French Revolution. Prime example. The American Revolution, you had a bunch of mostly young people. People forget how young our founding fathers actually were. They were not old and decrepit. These guys formed a path that was built off of this awesome thing called the Constitution that created this vertical path. Now, the difference, however, the French Revolution also had a vertical path between the ruled and the rulers, but they chose gratuitous violence. They didn't really have a set system. Well, they did again and again and again and again through the Reign of Terror, where it was just mob rule, bloodshed constantly. Oh, they got what they wanted accomplished, but at a terrible cost. Now, to be clear, it was still bloody in the American Revolution. But when you compare the two, it's night and day. We got our revolution done, and afterwards, there was some sense of organization. There was some sense of order and rule by the people. Whereas in France, the first revolution happened, and it was kill everyone, and then we'll worry about the thing later. You know?
Right.
And so,
Well, and
we have
that's
to
the difference
be-
between that was the difference between a revolution, one nation under God, versus
that's the key point.
Yeah.
Right.
versus and the French Revolution was, we're going to do away with God. We're going to do
Right.
away with faith, with religion. We
Right.
have a better way. Whereas the founding fathers knew, no, if we think we have a better way, we're wrong. And
Right.
we need to put in limits and constraints on us thinking we have a better way. Yeah. So,
And
Part of
that's
the problem. Part of the problem is branding, right? We use that word revolution, right? And people that don't know any better just look down the history of revolutions, like, oh, they had their revolution, this revolution, that revolution, not understanding how unique our quote unquote revolution was. It was something
Right.
different altogether. Yeah.
right, exactly. And here's
all
the
the way
thing.
down to King George saying, wait a minute, George Washington is voluntarily giving up power.
Oh,
That he is a great man.
Right.
That's something
Right.
no one's ever done before. Yeah. So
Right. It's really interesting because the reason why the word revolution is so appealing to the masses, it strikes that emotional flair. Like, let's be honest, we all love the music from Les Miserables. Can you hear the people sing? Da, 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 da. It's so appealing. We all love that song. But in reality, even though we all can get on board this revolution, okay, what happens after? That's what matters.
Yeah.
What then? After this glorious coup, what do? Do you have anarchy and bloodshed? Do you have a system of checks and balances meant to preserve real democracy through a republic, you know? But Joel, you brought up a great point. The difference was God. And that leads me to what matters for us as Christians. How I mentioned, the revolutions had to go down a certain path for victory. We as Christians have to realign our hearts vertically to God and not horizontally. So I know there's tons of verses that can support this. Oh, by the way, it says eat more tacos. Sorry. This is a movement I can get behind.
Well, Michael's got his Emmy. You got your T-shirt. I went to Chicago.
Did you go last week?
No, I went about last month.
Oh, nice.
The DNC was 2 weeks ago. Sorry.
Oh no, I guess a while ago.
So Michael, if you could please, can you read for me this first part here, 10:2?
What? Where is this? This is 10.
This is Jeremiah 10:2.
Jeremiah 10. All right. Hear the word which the Lord speaks to you, house of Israel. This is what the Lord says. Do not learn the way of the nations, and do not be terrified by the signs of the heavens, although the nations are terrified by them. For the customs of the people are futile, for it is wood cut from the forest, the work of the hands of a craftsman with a cutting tool. They decorate the idol with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and hammers so that it will not totter. They are like a scarecrow in a cucumber field, and they cannot speak. They must be carried because they cannot walk. Do not fear them, for they can do no harm, nor can they do any good. You want to continue?
Basically, we can finish up at 6 and 7.
All right. There is none like you, Lord. You are great, and your name is great in might. Who would not fear you, O King of the nations? For it is your due. For among all the wise men of the nations and in all their kingdoms, there is none like you.
So this verse, in my view, really highlights what we're talking about. Do not put your focus on the nations. You exist in them, yeah, but don't align yourself with the nations. At the end of the day, you need to align yourself with your creator, with your king. That is far beyond nations that rise and fall. And I think that really speaks to us because it's so easy to think, well, America will last forever. It might not. As great as our country is, at the end of the day, it's another nation. It's another nation that, as great as it is, it's formed by humans. Heck, even our own Constitution, our founding fathers made it very clear, black and white. They said, if our government fails us, we as a people have every right to get rid of it and start again. But the point is, regardless of how long our nation lasts, it doesn't matter. Because what you should be focusing on is our king, the ruler of all nations. So, Joel, what are your thoughts on that verse there?
Well, it's interesting because Michael talks about this God's plan for the nations, right? God thinks in terms, he thinks in terms of individuals, obviously, but he also thinks in terms of nations. And so there's this, I think there's a tension there between, okay, what do I do as far as my own personal responsibility? You know, it starts with me and everything, you know, you always have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, it starts with me. But then again, you also do have a responsibility or an expectation, at least from God, that you will reach out to the nations. And I don't know where your reaching out to your nation begins and the other nations, where yours ends and that begins, or how you find a balance between wanting your nation to be a Christian nation under God's control, right? Or bringing into God's, you know, into fellowship with God, or however you would say it for a nation. Where's that? How is that part of your individual responsibility to God? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You guys are looking puzzled. So
No, I'm following you.
I get it.
But like Michael always says, and you guys are broken up on your end. I don't know if I'm coming through to you guys, but
oh, you are. You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good, Joel. You can keep going.
Yeah, I was tracking with you.
Oh,
I guess he's having a
that's all I had to say.
technical issue. Oh, period. Well, actually, I was formulating my response. That's the look on my face. I'm like, oh, I like what he's saying. Let me.
Okay.
So that notion, right, that God,
Right.
and I always reference the one scripture where Jesus says, "You will do greater things," right? Greater, like, how is that even possible? But we have to take that word greater, right? What does it mean? You know, there's different, you know, there's qualitatively or quantitatively. That's like, obviously nobody can then do anything of a higher quality than what Jesus did. Jesus did what only he could do, right? Salvation is through him. But quantitatively, we can do greater because there's more of us, right? We're just like, that's the whole point. Make disciples of the nation. So that's what he was saying. Greater things will you do. But also, I like how you're bringing that out. Like, we live in a culture, we tend to be, the individuality tends to be emphasized in Western cultures. Like, we are an individual and you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you can prosper, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, the nature of capitalism. So being an individual is absolutely God's design, but also you are a corporate entity, right? And that's where nationalism is something God designed. Right? Nationalism is God's design. You are a corporate entity. And so it's difficult often, you know, in such an environment or a zeitgeist that so emphasizes individualism, and we don't recognize our responsibility for the corporate body. And that's where somebody, was it in here or previously, maybe it was on Bible Every Morning, somebody saying that 40 million Christians don't vote. 40 million Christians don't vote. it is your duty, right, as an informed and ethical being, right, to cast your vote. And Tim Pool was saying yesterday on his channel that your vote is more dangerous than if you were carrying out around an AK-47, right? Your vote is more dangerous potentially than a gun in your hand, right?
Mhm.
Because you can make a vote that leads to 60 million people, innocent people being massacred, right? Your vote. And so
Right.
we tend, like the Christians tend to like, oh, that's not my responsibility. God doesn't want to have anything to do with the government, blah, blah, blah. It's like, sorry, you haven't read your Bible. The word Jesus, the phrase Jesus is Lord is the most political statement that could possibly be uttered in that time, right? Jesus is Lord is a political statement. It's contrary to Caesar is Lord. Literally, it's a political statement. Jesus was a political figure. You cannot ignore your nation, that you are the nation. You are, it's not, it doesn't belong to you. It is you. You are it. A nation isn't geography. A nation is the people. So, we need to be Christian nationalists there.
Yeah, and I would say, well, Dr. Steve Turley, his dissertation a while back was focusing on how he argues the world is undergoing a massive change, where different nation states are going back to becoming civilizationists, where they're choosing to be their own entity.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, they'll work well with others, but they embrace their own civilization state, which means they can take care of themselves and not have to rely on this globalist system. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Yes,
and there's always
thank you.
the tension between the individual and the state. I mean, the totalitarian way is total for the total, right? You're not an individual. You're just one of the masses. And
Right.
you all, so there, but that's not what we want. Okay. We want that individual, American individualism is very valuable. It's what separates us. That's the line between us and tyranny, right? So again, I just think there's just a tension of where does this go?
Mm-hmm.
Limited government, another Dennis Pragerism, the bigger the government, the smaller the individual. Well, God created us uniquely individual in the image of God. We are individually responsible to him for our salvation. And yet we are part of a body of Christ first and then part of a nation, like you said. So again, there's that tension, always a tension of where, how do you distinguish where your energies go, especially when thinking of in terms of your society, right? And like I said, it is political. All politics is just how we deal with each other. Really, what gets down to it.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. I guess we got a couple minutes left. Basically, what I've been seeing the past few weeks is fascinating from a historical point of view, because so much is happening so quickly, and before you know it, November will be here, and it's so easy to get overwhelmed by all of this. But Michael, as you say all the time, God's in control. And so remove your anxiety, remove your trepidation, remove all of that, because at the end of the day, God's in charge. And I think he knows what he's doing.
And it's not a cop out. And a lot of people can think that that's just a cop out, and they'll say, I got his control. I don't need to go vote. Right? No,
Right.
But God being in control is when we submit ourselves to him, to his will, because actually God is going to use you. Sometimes he'll use you as a bad example, and that's what you
Right.
don't want, right? You don't want God
And
to
Michael,
use you.
yeah, catch our show from Wednesday, folks. Michael and I talked about just this.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
perfect.
Yeah,
That was
and
the topic.
at least my conclusion was, God is in control, so you better be on his side and not the other side. Otherwise, you end up like Saul at the end of your life saying, I have played the fool. I have, erred egregiously. So, little plug for our previous show there, Michael.
Our Wednesday. All right. Love you guys.
Love you, Patriots.
Love you too.
I will see y'all week after next.
Okay. Yep.
All right, take care, guys.
That's right. I'll be
Bye,
there.
everybody.